All right, folks, so this is welcome to the Light Rock special board meeting. We will go ahead and call to order. We have a quorum of our board starting at 6:18. Are we okay to go ahead and start the meeting, Lori?
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Purpose of this meeting is to get resident feedback on the Verizon proposal that was presented to us on the 19th. We don't have any other business on this agenda, correct?
Correct, no, we just have to follow kind of formality.
So we're going to set up with 3 minutes per resident. And if we have enough time, we'll go around the horn again and you can ask a second set of questions. But there's not really one, I'm sorry?
Make a second set of statements.
Second set of statements. Time for resident comment it's not meant to open a dialogue between the community and the board members. We all have email addresses, we're all willing to meet with anyone. It's to hear your comments, understand where you're coming from. We may ask you a question, we may not, we may react, we may not. Don't read anything into that. We're just trying to listen to everybody who's here to understand what they have to say. Fair enough?
Do we have a podium set up here just because we're taping this? So if you don't mind, I don't know what you think, but.
Totally fine. Are we recording, voice recording or camera?
Yeah, Chris back there, we're just going to for.
Yep.
Okay.
Camera recording.
Perfect. What's our camera recording right here to this podium?
So anyone who wants to ask you, if anyone wants their comments recorded,
Yeah.
they can stand at the podium and face this camera.
Correct.
Gotcha. That being said, who would like to go first? Please let us know your name and kind of where you live, and let us know your thoughts. Oh, first, I'm not sure.
You want us to pick them up?
Yeah.
If you'll state your name and then we'll go ahead and set a time.
Thank you. My name is Jody Dunham, and we live on Violet Court, just close to the entrance as you come in. And we have two concerns, basically. Number one, we get terrible cell reception. We lose our calls, we get dropped calls. People try to call us, they don't get us. And I have Verizon service, and I have a new phone. The main problem, the main concern that I have is a safety issue. If by chance we have a power outage, which happens once in a while here, then my Verizon extender won't work anymore, and therefore I have no cell phone usage. And so if we have an emergency, or times when I try to get repairman to come to my house and stuff, he comes up there and he tries to call and he can't get anybody. And the issue is if my husband had a heart attack during the storm and the power was out, we'd be SOL. And so it's a safety concern as well as a convenience concern. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, brought from the read because
Okay.
I'm raised in Friday, essentially. I'm Julie Lewis, and I live right over there, across from the playground. I've lived here for almost 9 years. So I'm going to actually read. Scott has heard of this because this is part of one of my husband's latest emails. He couldn't be here tonight. But I think he did a really good job of sort of summing up our main concerns with this. So our opposition to the Verizon cell tower comes down to personal choice. Just like your family and everyone buying a home, people have their own set of criteria. They have when making a choice of where to live. Some people think living in Candelas is not an acceptable risk for their family because of its proximity to Rocky Flats, despite the government's assurance that the former Superfund site is safe. To others, it's an acceptable risk of no concern. Some of us chose against a home that backs up to the possible future parkway. To others, it was an acceptable risk of no concern. We actually looked at a house that backs up to the parkway, and to us, that was not something that we chose to move to. The same is true for living by the landfill, under the power lines, or even drinking diet soda. The FDA says that aspartame is safe, while other studies say it's not. If any of these situations where people make personal choices that are right for them and their family, right or wrong, valid or overly cautious, it's an informed decision that's right for them. When we moved here 9 years ago, we made an informed decision to buy our home based on our own personal criteria and the information provided for the future plans for the community. Whether you, the board, or the FDA believe our opinions and purchase criteria are valid, we could debate forever. What's not debatable is that the approval of this tower proposal would take our personal choices away from us. Forcing a choice on us we did not consent to and vehemently oppose. It would be as if they built a landfill after people moved in without telling them it would be there, or forcing me and my 9 and 11-year-old daughters to drink that diet soda, whether we want to or not. I also want to make a comment about those of us who've been here forever, and just some of the concerns about safety. You know, when we moved in 9 years ago, I had a 10-month-old and a 2-year-old, and there was nothing over here. We did not have Wi-Fi calling. I could not make a phone call. And I got a landline. For about 5 years, I had a landline. Because I wanted to be able to call 911 if I needed to. And I only got rid of it a few years ago. Mostly because the kids are out of the house, we're not home as much. But if I was home regularly and I was concerned, I would get a landline. I think people forget that that is an option. It's cheap, it's like $20 a month. So anyway, those are our main concerns, and hope you guys will listen to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on, sir.
Go.
My name is John Ringsborough. I live up on 87th Avenue. And most of my comments are more technical in nature. First would be the proposed location of the tower. We moved up there, unobstructed view. It'd be a lovely view to have a tower out in that area, so don't know. But that was one of the things that was sold to us. Question I have, I don't know the answer to this. Would you contract me with the city of Arvada or Leiden Rock? It was Leiden Rock. Okay. Contract duration 20 to 30 years. Would there be access to changes in the lease? For example, Verizon raises their, let's assume the lease is $100 per period of time. I know how much these towers lease for, but that's okay. If Verizon were to raise their rates by 5%, would the lease have within it the ability to raise the lease rate by 5%? In other words, if it was $100 per period, to return it to $105 per period. Under subcontracting tower space, might be the Verizon tower, but you don't know who's going to be on that tower. Will the lease and contractual arrangements provide for Leiden to receive remuneration based on those changes? Construction impact, contract stability, and ground stability. They had to rebuild the entire slope over about a 6 or 8 month period up close to where we are because the ground became unstable. For this type of a tower, I believe there's excavation to set up a pad, and if that caused instability, who would be responsible for restoration, and who would be responsible for any damage to property owners based on introduced instability. On the construction, I'm sure there'll be a pad that's poured. Does it require a continuous pour? And if it does, will that continuous pour go through the nights? And if it does, what's going to happen for noise for the neighborhood? Also, I'm not going to be around for the end of the contract. These towers are usually 20 to 30 years. How is it going to be set up that the tower be removed? Hopefully not similar to the fracking establishment across the way that was abandoned. In other words, if the contract's over, or if Verizon sells out, is it going to be in the contract to have the tower removed? Let's see. One more thing we need to do.
We're at 3 minutes if you want to.
I'm sorry.
If you want to wrap up.
I'm done.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, you can say your last comment.
I think I covered everything.
Perfect.
I apologize for being ill prepared.
Jonathan, you were talking about an alternative location, not the actual location.
Any locations, it's possibly impacting people's views.
That's it. Thank you, John. Yes, sir.
Hi. Thanks for having me. My name's Chuck Hagan, and I live directly across the park. I was the very first house on 83rd Drive. When I bought my house, there were several items that were disclosed about the area by the builders. They disclosed the landfill, they disclosed the freeway, they disclosed Rocky Flats. Adding a cell phone tower to this building was something that was never disclosed as part of the master plan. This topic was brought up in 2019. It was roundly by the people that would be affected by it on the circle here. It was roundly put down. If you look into studies, one of them's by the Appraisal Journal, the other one's by the National Institute of Science, Public Law and Policy, they will tell you that 94% of the people look negatively on having a cell phone tower near the property. 70% of people wouldn't consider purchasing a property immediately adjacent to cell phone tower at all. And most people expect 15 to 20% reduction in the price of a home if it's located next to a cell phone tower. The Appraisal Journal found that the actual number was reduced by 21%. The average house on this circle is going for about $800 grand, and there's 36 of them. That means there's $5.7 million in potential lost property value. So I would like the board to address specifically who will reimburse the homeowners should that property loss come to fruition. And it's pretty easy to see sales on the circle, which should go at a higher price relative to sales anywhere else in the neighborhood. So who's got to be responsible for that? Because that's a real loss to the people that would be brought about by a change in the status quo. They're also ugly. People don't like them. There's also the issue of safety. It's very self-serving for Verizon to tell you that there's no safety effects, but the safety testing that was done in the 90s. For occupational workers, it was a 6-minute tested exposure. For the public, it was 30 minutes, and it was done with consumer-level devices. A transmitting tower is not a consumer-level device. There are houses 75 feet away from that tower, and the average child will sleep 8 to 10 hours a night in those bedrooms. I'm sorry if anybody loses cell phone coverage as they drive around the neighborhood, but if your convenience is more important than potentially the health of a child, I want to be on the record as saying I think that's despicable. I think it's absolutely despicable. You can get a landline for $50 a month, and as soon as people are going to turn around and say there's no long-term exposure hazards, I beg to disagree. Congress passed a law in the last year requiring the Department of Defense to study why aviators and ground crew personnel have a substantially double-digit higher risk of cancer than the average population. The leading culprit, the most obvious answer that they're concerned about, is airborne radars. Guess which frequency band airborne radars operate? It's S&C, 2 gigahertz to 8 gigahertz, the exact same frequency band we're talking about putting here within 100 feet or so of children's bedrooms. I think we've spoken loudly about this before. Find another location. I mean, everybody would like better cell phone coverage. Find another location, but putting it next to a child's bedroom is not the place to put it. And I thank you for your time. I'm sorry for
Thank you, Josh. Sensitive trend. You guys are prepared. This is, that,
That's gonna be hard to follow. Matt Brand, I live on the park right across the street here. My day job is a planning chief for a fire department, a large metropolitan fire department. So I wanted to focus more kind of on the emergency and safety side of things. First and foremost, as Julia mentioned, everybody has the ability for Wi-Fi calling. So when we look at a map like this, every one of these houses that has Wi-Fi should actively be able to make an emergency call, personal call of those nature. What we're really talking about here is the streets. I mean, you can see on the maps that we're really making arguments to drive while we're making phone calls, which based on my experience, 17 years in the fire department, really there's not a lot of injury-related accidents that occur within neighborhoods because based on the speed of the vehicle, roughly 25 to 35, I know they go faster at the entrance. And the safety of vehicles nowadays, it's not really related to injuries on vehicles. What it is related to is vehicle accidents versus pedestrians. And one of the leading causes of vehicle accidents or auto versus pet accidents is distracted driving. So again, we keep making the argument of we want better cell phone coverage, but the coverage we're arguing based on the maps is to have it while we're driving on the roads. Secondly, I made a phone call to Jefferson County Communications today, spoke to their 911 dispatcher, then they call the 911. When we make a 911 call to a location, that's the communication center that receives the call. I just verified with them that when a 911 phone call is placed, it contacts any local tower. It's not just a Verizon tower, not just your single carrier tower. So it will utilize any of the towers in the area to be able to field that 911 call. Cell phone companies are actually mandated to do that. And then I'd just like to say that it used to be common a place for fire departments to place cell phone towers on the fire stations themselves. The International Association of Firefighters is actively advocating against this measure. We've received at our fire department similar offers to cell phone companies to in monetary amounts to be able to make additional money for the fire departments. We've actively turned those down for the health and safety of our firefighters in those stations. And then one last point is just the Marshall Fire was brought up recently about, what if it happens here sort of thing. The Marshall Fire had roughly 22 cell phone towers in the area of Louisville and Superior. All those cell phone towers were overwhelmed in that emergency situation. I think it's a little unrealistic to think that the 2 or 3 cell phone towers we have in this area would not also be overwhelmed should an event like that occur within this neighborhood. So I really don't see the benefits of adding a cell phone tower within the community, especially from an emergency standpoint and our current access within our homes and Wi-Fi calling. So I appreciate if the board kind of recognizes and hears us out on this and protects the neighborhood and the safety of our families. Thank you.
Hi. I didn't rehearse this. She's like so mad at me right now. I'm Sherry Lynn Hagan. You are? Lexi. Where do you live? Okay, you need to speak loud. Why don't you point? On a circle? How long have we lived here?
I have no idea.
We moved here in 2013. You were the first house in the corner. Remember that?
10 years.
The road didn't even go through it. Like literally, it paved here, and then when that little turnout was nothing. Where is your room?
Front of the house.
Front of the house. It faces what?
Pool.
Can you see the tower?
Yeah.
Where? Okay. So what time do you go to bed?
I go to bed now.
Okay. What time do you get up?
6.
So you sleep all those hours right in front of the tower. Okay. What else? That's probably pretty good. Thank you. You can just sleep. We already voted on this. Everybody said no, thank you. The fact that we're revisiting it is, frankly, kind of a waste of people's time. We already said no. That's the only thing I sort of thought of today. Okay, so if Verizon owns the cell thing now, what what if there is some report that's like, oh, it's the worst thing ever, we wish we wouldn't have done that? How hard is it to get it out of there? The Verizon's like, sorry, that's my property, take me to court. Whether the options in there. The other thing, hey Lex, is your brain done growing?
No.
What time, when is your brain gonna finish growing?
25.
25. You're awesome, thank you. I totally know you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve. My wife, Laura, and our 3 kids live in that blue house right there. It is about 120 feet away from a giant proposed microwave transmitter. We don't want it. That's simple. I am a mechanical engineer. I am a very left-brained or analytical person, but this is entirely selfish. I don't want my kids exposed to crap. And I acknowledge the fact that the cell phone coverage out here is terrible, but we knew that when we moved in here 8 years ago. So I don't like this thrust upon me. I don't like it thrust upon my kids. So I'm going to voice my opposition to it. Thanks, Steve. Thank you.
Do you guys know what you're looking at here? Absolutely. Do you guys know what you're looking at here? These are from the presentation. These are the cell phone coverage maps, our current cell phone coverage, and then what it's going to look like with some improvements they're doing without this tower. They're adding another receptor on the Patridge Park tower that's at 93 and 82nd, and that should narrow some of these purple areas. And purple is bad. That's where you're down to 1 bar. But that's what it would look like without the tower. If the tower goes in, it'll go somewhere. Sorry about that.
So I'm John Bruce, this is my wife Robin. We live in a house directly opposite the clubhouse, so a couple hundred feet from the proposed tower.
What's your name,
John Bruce.
Bruce.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think it's very important that you get some feedback from the residents. I want to make 3 points. The first point is the Verizon proposal that we saw 4 years ago. I saw 0 effort to actually improve on the proposal and mitigate the concerns that we raised 4 years ago. So we said no then, and we're saying no again. The second point is, why are we even here again? I think the concerns is the Marshall Fire, and thank you for everything that you're doing to mitigate that issue. I don't see a correlation between the recommendations that came out of that fire and a Verizon cell phone tower. There's just no correlation in my mind with the Wi-Fi calling, the landline, and other measures that you can take to call them for an emergency. The last point is nuisance. It's just an absolute eyesore of the proposal. The increased height of the tower, the additional power structure that's going to end up on the ground. You've heard of the phrase NIMBY, not in my backyard. Well, this is literally in my front yard. I'm a hard no. I'm an absolute hard no on this. I understand the concept of taking one for the team. When it comes to the health of my family, my immediate neighbours, I'm not okay with that. I am not okay with that. So please, please, please do not do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Richards, and I live right there. I live 102 meters away. And I thought this would be a good time to follow up on what John said, because we do understand the concept of taking one for the team when we live here, because we have dealt with the pool, we have dealt with waking up at night and policing the pool. So we're definitely taking that for the team, and we don't mind it. It's okay. But my point was that this proposal was purportedly brought to you guys to aid in safety in the event of an emergency. And like John said, during the Verizon proposal the other week, I saw no links. Nobody talked about safety. Nobody talked about how many lives this is going to save. It really appears more about convenience and more about people being able to talk on their phone while they drive. If we get a generous estimate of the number of homes down on the northeast side of phase 1 that it will affect, generously, let's say 100 homes. Verizon carries 30% of the market share, so we're looking at 30 homes. I don't think my child's safety 100 meters away is worth those 30 homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Baylor Diamond, live right across on the other side of the park. I will say when I moved in here, I assumed there was a cell phone tower there, because why else would we have a tower if there wasn't a cell phone dish in there? It's pretty common in most new construction to like put a silly tower around it. So I know when we moved here, we changed from T-Mobile to AT&T, and I think now we're on Verizon actually. Still no service on that side of the neighborhood. I agree, the Verizon presentation was just really lackluster. It didn't seem like they put any thought into it. Didn't seem like they really like went through like your suggested alternative locations or anything like that. And so I would say maybe for all of us, since obviously safety is key, if there's a fire and half the people are evacuating properly and the other half are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, not sure what they're doing, asking a neighbor. We don't want that. So maybe we can just all as the community try to figure out like how do we get in touch with T-Mobile and AT&T and see if some of their engineers are a little bit better. Can they find a place on Patridge Park side? Can they work with the city to do some city land sites? I think we all want a safe evacuation route. We want to be able to get those alerts from the city when they say, hey, 99-mile-an-hour winds is coming your way. There's going to change in air direction. You guys got to leave now, and you're going to have a huge bottleneck on the 82nd. We all want to get those messages, but it doesn't seem like Verizon is the right group to help us get that. So I don't know if anybody's got any contacts at, other, these subcontractors who try to find sites for these cell phone companies. Like maybe we could try to put some thoughts together and try to find a better provider who can honestly find a place on the city or battle sites that will then give us coverage so that we can all get the coverage that we want, but not have to deal with, honestly, a pretty half-hearted proposal from Verizon. So, I don't know. Hopefully somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who can get us some of those contacts. So.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name's Steve Cole. I live right across the street, so I'm also right across from the pool here. I sent a letter of opposition to the board, and they forgot that, but I figured it'd be worth reiterating kind of some of the high points here. So, I also want to mention my day job. I'm the chief architect for a federal agency, but of course I speak here tonight on my own behalf, my family's behalf, my neighborhood's behalf. But as part of my job, I oversee $1.5 billion portfolio of buildings and real estate, and I think it's important that I think about the data in those terms. So for our neighborhood property values, obviously that was brought up by Chuck earlier and others. One of the primary concerns is on the impact on property values. Studies have shown that the presence of the cell tower can lead to a decrease in property values upwards of 20%. Lower property values can translate into financial losses for the homeowners, many of whom have invested significant savings in our community. This may also open the door for legal action against the board in pursuit of civil damages. Health and safety, we've talked about that. The health and safety of our residents are paramount. There's an ongoing debate about potential health risks. However, all the studies basically agree that there is some risk, and that since it's a non-zero risk, why should we entertain the idea of introducing any risk into our community? Future health concerns by residents could be attributed to the cell tower, encumbering both the board and the community with potential legal costs and issues. The aesthetic impact, of course, as a licensed architect, I can attest that our neighborhood's charm lies in its aesthetic appeal and character. The introduction of the cell tower and the accompanying ground mounted equipment, which would be somewhere in this general neck of the woods, would significantly alter the landscape, obstruct views, diminish the beauty of our community. In addition to the visual impact, the equipment will create an audible hum and buzzing from the electricity. It's high voltage equipment. Regarding the tower now, as it stands, it's well proportioned. Increasing the height is where I'm proposing is going to be disharmonious to the here, not only in the clubhouse, but also in the neighborhood. I also believe Verizon is underselling the cost. In my line of work, we're seeing commercial construction bids at 250 to 300% of what they were pre-COVID. And lead times for items, especially electrical and telecom items, are running orders of magnitude longer. We need to be honest about the cost in this kind of environment. Safety hazards, while there's been arguments made that it can increase the safety of our community, the equipment itself presents its own safety hazard. In our high-wind environment, there's electrical equipment, we run the risk of short or failure, and that can create its own fire, create its own emergency that needs to be mitigated. Environmental impacts, there's studies currently being conducted that show that the electromagnetic signals from the tower can impact migratory birds, raptors, other species, and we certainly have those in our main rock area. That's something to consider. The legal risk, I'm trying to speed up here. This could introduce a number of legal battles for the community, and even if the Metro District prevails in those legal battles, it will suit the time and effort of the board to navigate those. Financial risk. While Verizon has alluded to minimal capital costs on their end, it's unclear what the life cycle costs will be for both Verizon and the community. The Metro District is fortunate to have a strong financial position, and the additional income this tower will bring is insignificant relative to our community's cash flow. We don't need the money. Wildfire risk, we talked about that if there's actual wildfire, just like a Marshall fire, the chance of the power going out in the neighborhood would also impact the cell tower. The cell tower would also not have power, so it would not function. Okay.
Or you can have my 3 minutes if you'd like.
I only got 2 more points. Okay.
Go ahead.
Inclusivity of other telecom companies. Brought the notion to the board that by allowing Verizon preferred access to our assets in our neighborhood, it will open the door for the other major telecom companies to pursue legal action and in terms of fairness, they'll want an opportunity to provide public safety, communication, as well as market share. So in order to accommodate all of those providers, the Verizon representative said as much that the tower would need to go up by almost 30 feet. And so if you can imagine what they're proposing at 10 feet, stacking the 2 on top of that, it's going to look a bit ridiculous. Alternative solutions. I believe there's alternative solutions available to address this issue. We talked about small cell solutions, landlines. Verizon is using the same proposal from 4 years ago that we already voted no on. They have not done the due diligence to show that alternative locations in the West Arvada area provide similar benefits. If the city of Arvada is pushing this, where are they in these conversations? Can the city not provide a location if they want it so badly? Why is the burden on Lakemont to provide preferred access to Verizon? Why is the board obligated to consider this rehashed proposal? I urge you guys to vote no, of course. I voted for board members based on this issue, and I'll do so in the same manner the next time around. I believe we can work together to find a solution that satisfies our connectivity issues while also safeguarding our property values, health, aesthetics, safety, the environment, and our community's financial, wildfire, safety, and competitive interests. I trust that you guys will take these considerations as you prioritize the concerns of the well-being of the Lake Rock residents and make the choice. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to the board for the opportunity to have our voices heard. I think they were heard loud and clear 4 years ago, but we're here to do this again because we feel strongly enough about the implications of this proposal. I'm Sarah Gauze. I live next to these two, just across the street. We could debate the potential harms and risks till we're blue in the face, and we all have the right to come to the conclusions that are best for us and our families. I can tell you, as an oncology physician assistant, and treating cancer patients for over 20 years, also as a mother of 5 beautiful babies who literally sleep right across from where this tower is proposed. 20 years of research and data is not sufficient to give an adequate estimate of what risk we're putting our kids in. That is a blink of an eye when it comes to the long-term exposure that our children will have. And if there's any risk at all, I think we as a community owe it to our children to protect them. That's the community that we love. We've been here for almost 10 years, And this is our forever home. And I hope that a different choice isn't forced upon us, because I do feel strongly enough about those risks. And I don't think that that should be a decision that's made for us after the fact. We had a lot of health risks to consider when we purchased this home. A cell tower was never one of those. And to have to think about that twice now is frustrating. I also would urge the board that we don't have to have this discussion again once we have this vote finalized this time. I really do trust that we as a community will represent the voices that are the most vulnerable, and that is our children. We're invested in this community. My husband's a teacher at Ralston Valley. He can't be here because he's doing parent-teacher conferences. We don't want to leave, and we don't want that choice forced upon us. I appreciate the time, effort, and energy that has been put into considering all of the ramifications of this proposal. It is no small task to represent the community, and we thank you for what you do. I don't believe that there are any medically trained or scientifically trained members of the board. If I'm wrong, please let me know. You are? Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't know that. Okay, perfect. Because while we can all interpret the risks on our own, I would prefer to trust the societies that put a lot of time and effort into this, such as the American Cancer Society. Brad, I appreciate you noting their recommendations around this, that we cannot fully dismiss any of the potential risks, long-term effects. So I just want to conclude by saying again, thank you for representing us and for considering the children who are impacted in this decision. And I trust that it will reflect doing good for the majority of our members here, or our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Stan.
Good evening. My name's Stan McGee. Debbie, my wife, and I live on the other side of the houses. So we are thought of as not being impacted by this. But the impact to us doesn't come from a cell tower and stuff coming out of it. It is impacted by parts that other people have brought up. The financial impact. This is a handout from the National Association of Realtors. I'm not a realtor, but I got it from them. That says the impact, as somebody stated, is up to 21% of the value of your house. Now, people would say, well, we live far enough away, we're not going to be impacted. But if the price of your house goes down 20%, and yours, and yours, and yours, our whole area is going to be impacted by that amount. In my opinion, the board is the stewards of our community. They're the ones who are also going to be impacted by this, but it's their responsibilities to enhance the value of our property, not decrease it. And if we are financially impacted, they are going to be impacted also. This should be a no-brainer kind of vote. And one more thing, there was somebody back here, one of the first speakers that talked about the cell tower being blocking his view. There's actually a federal law that states that if a cell tower is built, and what did they say, it's going to be 20 feet higher? Something like that? 10 feet higher. If a cell tower is built, the people who own the cell tower, or Verizon in this case, can increase the height of that tower anytime they want, 20 more feet, without there being any ability for the community to try to keep them from doing it. It's a federal law that if they go up 10 feet, they can go up another 20 feet, and you can't do anything about it. So it's something that maybe would impact some people, but it could be at any point. But anyway, thank you. I got a feeling this is going to be a non-issue. This looks like.
I hope so.
This looks like Verizon is done. But we'll see them again in 4 years.
Well, to stand to your point, is there anyone here who who's in support of this proposition is a little uncomfortable saying something because there's really strong opposition to it. Is there anyone here who just wants to hear? Yeah, is there anyone here who might want to have an opportunity to speak in support of this proposal?
First speaker.
Okay.
And perhaps, I just want to say, I'm really nervous about getting into this contract and the ins and outs, and you don't really know what's going to happen.
Would you like to come up to the podium?
I'm sorry, yeah. We
Thank you.
like
Stand.
Sam was saying that, we don't really know what's going to happen in the future, and if we let them endure, what are we really going to have control over? And 10 foot here, I know 20 feet, then AT&T comes in, T-Mobile comes in, we have more infrastructure, it just completely gets out of our control.
And which one is?
Robin Bruce.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah. And then I'm assuming there's no termination of the contract. And then any laws or regulations that get updated, I'm sure that we will have to deal with those. So, I mean, it's easy to say, this is what the proposal is, this is what it's gonna look like this year, in 5 years. But in 10 years, this could be absolutely out of control, and we'll have no way out of it. So that's kind of my concern. We just need to be careful for what we wish for, I think.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Perhaps working along the same lines, I'd like to make suggestions that we have some just response, not necessarily back and forth, which is really still drive that home and towards moves. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. But Brett has been talking a great deal about it. I don't want to all take the credit, but he's talked more about looking for alternative locations. And he really pushed hard with Verizon to do that. Verizon did not respond as we hoped they would. I agree, they didn't do their due diligence in that regard. And I think there's a general consensus, the neighborhood needs, could benefit from better reception, but we don't want it. People don't want it right here. And Brett's idea was to go out and look and see, could we build our own tower and rent out the space? And then we control it. If I'm throwing that out there before you were ready to have that.
I'm digging into that. We don't have board consensus that that's where the board wants to go. Board members may agree, they may not agree. But yes, I am trying to see if there are alternatives to finding another location. Is there another way to do this? Because I think we all agree.
And that's why we're redoing this. I wasn't on the board, I don't believe either of you were on the board when we voted on it before. Yeah, we're all new board members, but it did come back in front of us because Verizon asked us to take a look, and because we also have a bunch of the people who showed up, the ones who are right here really feeling most strongly about it, but we do also have the online comments, and there are a lot of people who are worried about emergency access and how to call 911. So if you look at the numbers, I haven't looked at that recently, but I'd say it's probably fairly well balanced. That doesn't mean it has to be right here, it doesn't mean we have to have it. It's
Any
just-
other part of the neighborhood's gonna have the same issue though. Like if you were to ask any of those people and you said, hey, we want to put it over here, it's a different set of people that are gonna be sitting here.
We're looking at, well, we're looking over toward the industrial areas, which are, I'm always pointing in the wrong direction.
Katie, in that email that I sent you, there's a second slide.
So is it a different document or?
Different document.
Do you know why they won't consider that big tower that everybody can see?
Well, I think Verizon did address locations in Washington States. They have the one in Candelas and the one on 93 over there. If you move one over there, it'd be too close to that site. If you move one over here, it'd be too close to that site. I think Verizon did address that there really is not another site that would work for them.
That big tower that everybody can see.
Right, it's too close. It's too close to the Candelas site.
What do you mean by too close? What happened?
There's another tower. I live up on Ross and Lakeport Drive. I don't even know this. We lived here 5 years until somebody pointed out. I live on the corner looking looking at Barbara Gulch. If I look to the left of the tower, there's another cell tower right there that I never was there living here 5 years, and that's the Candela one.
What means is Verizon's not gonna spend money for overlapping coverage.
It didn't suit their purposes, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean AT&T or.
Well, that's what we're saying with the, they haven't done the due diligence, because the purple area that doesn't have coverage is right up Bismarck Drive along 82nd. So if closing the tower would solve that problem, but even in their maps, it doesn't actually solve the problem. And the point I made is that when there's an emergency, we're all gonna be crammed in our cars along 82nd, we're in a cell coverage anyway, even with the cell tower here. So why isn't Verizon proposing locations along Pastures Park, or in the town of Maiden, or Maiden Ranch, or anywhere else that would be closer in that purple zone? And they said, well, we addressed that. They haven't actually provided information.
We can come up with sites, all we can sort of go in the face, but until we sit down with a Verizon engineer, they could have a response for every single site you mentioned. Maybe the one by Lane is too close to that one on Quaker. We don't know where they're overlapping, so we can come up and do it in the face, but I don't think it's
Totally fair. They haven't, and they don't. And they have 4 years, and they still don't. And we've asked them, and they told basically goes to you guys.
At
So,
last week's presentation,
Right.
he pointed out that there are 100 homes, not 30, but 100 homes. That increase would have an exception now, and that's what they're worried about. I mean, it's a numbers game. They want to build it in person.
That doesn't make sense.
The 30 comes from Verizon having 29% of the market share.
Yeah, it's 100 homes that they're saying they will add on here, but it's homes, they're not worried about the street each second, as you said, that's not actually as much what they're looking at. I don't remember that not being all green, right?
It was pretty darn green.
I mean, in my office, this is multiple in my desk, we reject it immediately because they just haven't done the due diligence. There's not enough data to make a decision on. No, I don't think you guys have enough information to make a decision. We certainly don't have enough information.
We still have to listen to get as much community impact as, feedback as we can get. So we have to be really careful about saying, I'm not going to support that, because then I'm tuning out people that may not have had a chance to respond yet. So I got to be really careful with that. If you don't mind, does anyone else want to add more public comment?
I want to say something.
Okay, why don't you come on up? Hi.
I'm Lisa Bueller. I live the corner right down here. What I wanted to say is everybody talks about the 20 years of studies they've done. That does not include 5G. 5G is a totally different animal that was here 20 years ago. My husband's a pilot, and in European airports, they cannot have 5G within 5 miles. And planes that fly in the US had that special shielding put up so they could fly into 5G. And if it's going to affect every airplane, it's going to affect our houses. There's no way that there's, even if it's just noise pollution and, I don't know, I'm sure there's some health risk. And I did read that it affects babies most because their skulls are softer. And I agree we should not be in that position. But until there's 20 years of 5G, then maybe, but then there won't be 5G anymore. In a couple of years, we'll probably be 10G, and who knows what that's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
So if we're concerned about fire mitigation, you know, I'm sorry. So if our concern is the fire that happened over here, the issue isn't being told that the wind's blowing 100 miles an hour. If you don't know the wind was blowing 100 miles an hour that day, you're dead. Okay? I mean, that's obvious to anybody who's here. The issue is you can't get out here. If you want to pursue something, pursue an easement across the railroad tracks so you can get on 72nd Street and get out of here. I mean, what people got backed up behind is trailers and all those other things. I mean, you know, and that's the real issue. Verizon is one of 3 carriers, so if Verizon can't find a solution, you know what I do when I wanted to go to Miami this weekend and I couldn't get there in one flight on United? I went on American. That's what you do with your cell phone coverage. Go talk to AT&T or T-Mobile or somebody else. Who cares about Verizon? Because my question is, if my property value goes down by 160 grand, who's paying? Because I'm not looking for the money. So all the folks who are in the other part of the neighborhood, ask them if they're willing to chip in for about $5 or $6 million for the affected property values. That's the question to counterbalance. I mean, you know what I want? I want a gold service shuttle that takes me to work from the airport, but nobody's going to pay for that. You don't get everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, did you have a comment? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any?
Yes.
Hi, Sherry.
Well, I will say one thing addressing the appraisals. I'm a certified residential appraiser. I work for the city of Denver. If the towers they are talking about are the tall, big towers, and we've done many studies, we've done it 3 years in a row, we have not found any value loss because of cell phone towers. 5G towers are all throughout Denver now. They sit right in front of people's windows. We're not seeing any increase in home values. So I think that's rather inflated data. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think 20% is a complete exaggeration. But
And Verizon should guarantee that, right?
Yeah. Can they
Guys,
we are not here to argue. We want to hear you, understand your statement, understand your point, understand Scott's point, but we're not here to argue. Fair enough? Okay.
Can I give you a number? You like 20%? I'll give you 100%. If we need to evacuate out of this neighborhood, 100% of our residents have to get out of 82nd. 100%. We need another road out of here. If it's about safety, more than we need a cell tower. Would you like to say that?
Anybody else?
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
So I know they'll do the 4G and then they'll eventually deploy the 5G on every corner. But the question would be, is this going to be a disclosure that we have to make, when we go sell a house? And also, is it something we have to disclose to our insurance company if the structure decides to become large enough and we're in a high wind area, I think this is the heaviest corridor, right, of wind doing damage. So if the structure gets to the point where it can fall on cars or properties, I mean, I guess, what are the rules with that?
Good question. Anyone else have any comments they'd like to share with the board before we kind of summarize?
Just have a
Yes.
question. I guess I just would like
Would you
some,
mind?
oh, sure.
Please. The rest of the community benefits. We're working this one, the rest of the community to learn and listen that you're
Okay.
sharing.
I'm Vanessa. I live right across from the basketball court over here. And I've been here 10 years. I have Verizon. It's never really been a problem with coverage. So I was strongly opposed to this 4 years ago. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner that takes care of patients on the loop. And so with not knowing any kind of risks, I just feel like we shouldn't be taking that chance. And I want to stand with all of my neighbors and community members who are strongly opposed to this. So my question really is, because I haven't really been involved in this last year and what you guys hear, is really what brought this about. And I want some transparency and some clarity as to why City of Arvada wants this here and why Verizon wants it. I know Verizon because I listened last week, but what is it that the city sees that this is the only place we can have a cell tower?
So yeah, we're in the process of meeting with the city and other agencies about escape routes. One thing that comes up very often is safety concerns and cell phone coverage. So what happened is Arvada went from that meeting and they said, whoa, Light Rock wants more cell service. They reached out to a gentleman that did the presentation, and that person reached out to us. It's not in the city's interest to do this. So it's not the city saying, well, we want you to have a cell tower. It's the city basically conveying a message. That's their part in this. Does that make sense?
So will the board members feel obligation to entertain us every time it comes to us? Will we continue to have this discussion every time that's brought to the board?
Don't know yet.
I can't speak for future boards, of course. But who knows, in 10 years, another board may want to do it, you never know.
I never thought it would be here in the first place. I gotta be, well, so you guys know me, know that I never thought I'd be in this position. Well, Julie.
I I just want to know, did you guys, I know you invited them, why are they not doing it? Because I was hoping to get some more clarification on some of the other potential, like, we asked for an RF engineer, to maybe make a map like this for that other option, and they're not here. I also wanted to ask them about the recent litigation with the FCC and how everyone's kind of waiting. One was the Children's Health Defense Fund, and a couple there's some other petitioners like sued the FCC, basically saying like, you need to at least respond to a lot of these studies that, whether or not you believe that they are, bunk or whatever, but saying you need to respond, and they actually ruled that the FCC does need to respond to that their guidelines are potentially unsafe. This was in 2021. And so we're still waiting on the FCC to respond. And I was just wondering if Verizon was going to say what they were.
I've got like 10 points I'm going to cover after everybody's done here. So I will respond to that. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name's Sergeant Big Larry, I've been on here in the corner. My setup with the name is 5G cell service, small cells, to all the board members. And in this, there's a Verizon 10K report. And it says our wireless business also faces personal injury, wrongful deaths, and lawsuits relating to alleged health effects of wireless phones, radio frequency transmissions, may incur significant expense in defending these lawsuits. In addition, we may be required to pay significant awards and statements. There's also 10K reports from all of the cell phone companies throughout the United States that basically says the same thing. And then if you look at the back of this, it says worldwide policies, United States. The city of Los Angeles has banned cell phone towers around schools. The Hawaiian Islands are banning 5G cell phones due to the high frequencies and power outputs from the 5Gs. Numerous city restrictions, cell antennas in your homes, including Los Angeles, Malibu, San Diego, Bedford, New Hampshire, and many more other cities. Oregon State is investigating health effects of wireless. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And then there's a statement in here from the legal and liability. The first one is, when a new cell tower is proposed, the first question to ask is, do you have insurance for damage from long-term exposure to radio frequency radiation, which is RF? And right now, most of the insurers rate, or they will not insure cell phone towers due to RF of 5G and due to the radiation that it is putting out. So I mean, there's things that are out there that you can find, and this one is put out by Environmental Health Trust, and I sent this out to all the board members. So there's stuff that's out there.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks for hanging in there with us. And these comments, everyone's comments have been great. Very respectful. It was a little harsher last time.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Verizon person got on now. Yeah.
It's
That's fine.
Would you mind waiting for Taz to come back? Okay. And yes, the city did come to us. We did not go to the city and say we wanted to revisit this. So because it's a new board and we had a development board before, and we have a resident board, we're dealing with a lot of RHU fire escape or fire exit issues right now. And we felt it was important to revisit it, as painful as it is for a lot of people. I don't know how to do something about that in the future. I don't know if it's even possible to keep us all going through this again. But we felt it was important to at least examine it with the new resident control board. That's that's one area. Sorry.
Can it be written into the bylaws or some other mechanism to basically preserve the structures? Like, can we do it as part of preservation on the line? It's not as part of here, but something along this line. Perhaps, it's something to think about.
Yes.
This thing, you talked to, like, what is the threshold for the board to consider these sort of things might pop up? I mean, you know, is there a formal process? Is there, because it's another governmental entity? You know, I came to you guys and said, hey, right, I propose we paint every house in the circle hot pink. I mean, you have to consider it because I brought it to you. Right. So what is the threshold for the board to say, yeah, we must consider this or that one? Or not?
It's not formulated, it doesn't work that way. It's, could this be beneficial for our community? That's kind of the threshold. Okay, anybody else have any other comments?
I just had a quick question.
Oh, yes.
There's no need to really stand up. What is the, I mean, this might be one of the talking points. What's the process now between now and when you guys, well, I'm assuming your other board members are going to be here. What is that process? Can you, I don't know the names, October or something? 17. So what happens between now and then?
We continue to gather more feedback from the community that no new information from Verizon. We just they had their chance to propose on 9/19. That was their shot. This is the community feedback. No new information's coming. Because then we have to have new community feedback, right?
Okay.
So listen to the community more, digest, research as much as research is not.
So then y'all are going to have a meeting
Yes.
just by yourselves, I'm guessing, and then you take a vote, 3.
Those meetings are always open to the public.
Okay.
And we're scheduled on the 7th.
17th, October 17th.
That is.
That is a regular board meeting, yeah.
Okay.
We
Okay.
can't make any decisions without being.
I see. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Fellow board members, do you guys want to make a statement before we wrap up for tonight?
I think I made mine earlier that
Okay.
if we can find a solution that works to decrease exposure and keep it well distanced from anywhere else and also allows coverage for other carriers, I'd be interested in looking into that, but
Scott, thanks for beating feet, and getting down here. I know it's tough.
No, I don't have any. I'm grateful for all the information and the emails. If I don't respond right away from your email, I will do it as fast as possible. It's time with the city member.
Yeah. And there's a lot of emails. I've got a few things. I do want to make sure everybody understands we do want to have improved cell phone coverage here. We think it would be beneficial for our community if we had better cell phone service. The question is this the right place to do that? That's really the big question. We do have improved coverage coming from Verizon if you're a Verizon customer. We had a map that was up here that showed this one here, and it shows that Verizon is considering adding a new transmitter on one of their cell sites in Patrick's Park on 93 and 82nd that would improve coverage here. I think it's going to eliminate some of the problems, but it would improve coverage along 82nd, which a lot of people are asking about. I am looking at alternate locations. I've reached out to AT&T, I reached out to T-Mobile, I reached out to Tower Construction, something like that. I've got a couple more names to try and reach out to try and find a place. Is there a better way to do this? Is there a way where we can get all 3 carriers on one tower so as we're not just benefiting one company? Maybe we can do it, maybe we can't, I don't know. But it's a very complex procedure, so if anybody in the industry knows how to negotiate with cell phone companies and how to work with them to develop better coverage, please send them my way. So we can try and figure this out. RF engineers, yes. Not thinking raise hands. The one location that I was talking about, Katie, can we go back to the map? There it is. This is a map of our community, and it shows all the the areas owned by the district, and Matt, this comes to your question. All the gray areas are city. All the colored areas, whether they're red, green, yellow, blue, those are county tracks. That location where Katie has her pointer right there is on the other side of the, I don't know why they own it. It's on the other side of the parkway. It's completely landlocked. There's no way to get to Highway 72 or the Jefferson Parkway or anywhere else through that one. And it's a good elevation. I'm trying to see if we can get a tower built up there. Somebody asked me about cell phone tower lease rates.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So why do you, I mean, the biggest concern seems to be up here at the farthest entry, right, where it's at the lowest point.
No, it's part of the gulch.
Farthest east. It's this point.
It's this part down here.
Yeah, you can see it on the other map, it goes back real fast.
Right, but I mean, the other night I was down there with my phone after you guys had your little meeting. And I had like 3 bars, and I'm a Verizon customer, all the way down there where they said there was no service.
Yeah, no, I actually do find down like the road. And I was cruising the neighborhood today, and I have pretty good coverage downtown. It's really bad
It's where the black houses that are black.
where the houses are, kind of this side going down towards my property.
And they're looking out here and say, drive this, say, they're 15 or they're qualified enough for
Well, I'm not gonna get talked out of something until they absolutely tell me that.
What is the fear for the board of not having coverage in like just little sections of the roadway? I just don't understand this. Like, you get emergency phones, you get Wi-Fi calling on all the houses. As I explained, Jefferson Community Dispatch does utilizes all towers for 911 response. You get landline option. There's plenty of parts in Colorado that do not have cell phone coverage. Why are we so concerned with little segments of our road and our infrastructure?
I personally, and I'm doing this on my own again, the board has not said that, yes, right, we approve building our own tower, and I'm just told it. I'm doing this on my own because I think it would be a benefit to the community if we had coverage. If we can't find it, is it the end of the world? Not as far as I'm concerned. But if we can't find it and generate revenue for the community, lease terms, something about lease, you sir, you asked about lease terms? $2,500, standard in the industry is $2,500 a month per carrier if we own the tower. So that would generate $7,500 a month in revenue for the Metro District, or $90,000 a year. That's about 7% of our budget. That means that property taxes go down by 7%.
Yeah, I think also that a lot of we fear the science and the medical harm from medical. There's a lot of people that have fear of not having cell phone coverage. And it's their fear, I'm not saying it's it, but people have different fears. And maybe they don't know about all the news about other cell phone towers. But there are a lot of people, especially in my area, when we didn't have it forever, they really were scared about having cell phone coverage.
We've gotten a lot of comments from people.
It scares us.
But weren't they here?
That's what I was gonna ask.
They did the online version.
Yeah, because I know that we're so concerned and this is,
But it's also.
Why did they move here? Like, I mean, but you don't want to turn it into a tit for tat. They have concerns, you have your concerns, and as board members, it's our job to listen to the concerns of everyone and not look for their motives and why they don't agree with you or you with them.
They just have blogging spikes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They have to improve coverage.
I
want to wish that upon them where
Guys,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, let me wrap up with my comments real quick. And then I'm available to talk however you guys want to talk. Before the board meeting, let me kind of wrap up kind of some things. So I want to make sure I get everybody's questions answered. A lot of talk has been talking about the ability to communicate in the event of an emergency, if power goes out and whatnot. If there's an emergency, 9/11 taught us we got to use text. We're not supposed to be on our phone. We're going to overwhelm the phone system. They're not going to go through. Text, always go through. If you have a single bar, your text isn't going to go through, and that's what we've been told we're supposed to use, not calls. This is also something that Chris Woodley and I are working on, which is a siren notification system up in the clubhouse. I don't know if the board members would agree to this or not, but it's something that we're working on. Could we install sirens for when reverse 911 goes down? If people don't get the message, you get sirens. Would have worked in Hawaii, could make a big difference here in the event of a martial fire type event. We don't know if we can pull that off, but we're trying to figure that out. Lots of questions on how to do that. Somebody also asked about the tower being forced to increase the size of the tower. We retain ownership of the tower, we lease them space. So we would still have complete control over the tower at all times. So they would be buying the tower from us, they'd be leasing space inside of it. Already talked about lease terms. Oh, the lease terms, sir, they generally are 20-year leases with 5-year increases of 10, 15% in the monthly rate. So it's one amount that 5 years later goes up by 10 or 15%, and it goes up after that. Fire exits. Have you guys been following the work on the fire exits that we've been doing? We've been working with the city to work on alternative ways to get out of the community. The city's helped series of community meetings. Are you guys getting those? They're tepid, yeah. It's important. There's a lot of good information in there. There's a lot of good education in there. Because someone said that our bigger concern is evacuation routes, and I couldn't agree more. I think we can walk and chew gum, but evacuation routes out here is a critical issue. So while if a martial fire type event happened here, we would be in a lot of trouble. So that's my quick comments. I'm around. I'll be around if you guys want to chat a little bit more. Anything else, guys?
No, thank you all for coming.
Thank you guys. Super appreciative of quality comments here tonight. Y'all did your research. I'm impressed in this very volatile and emotional topic, and I understand why. Motion to adjourn. Thank you.